Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Critical Role leaving Dungeons and Dragons. Boy, you want to talk about a myth? Woo! Yeah, right, yeah. So let's get into it. Okay, so there's a lot of talk that Critical Role is leaving Dungeons and Dragons. I think the biggest proponent of this myth is the character sheet on comicbook.com. They have a channel. They've really spun up quickly. The biggest thing is they do very high production value, high frequency videos, right? And I do high frequency videos. I do not do high production value videos, right? But you can get a lot of traffic off of high frequency, high production value, right? What they don't have is, in my humble opinion, is almost any truth in their coverage. They are the most anti D&D channel that matters on YouTube, and they do a ton of work. They labor hard every day to push Dungeons and Dragons back, right? And they are looking for a hero. They're holding out for a hero until the break of dawn. And he's got to be strong, and he's got to have might, and he's got to know right from wrong. They're looking for a hero. They desperately want anybody to win but Dungeons and Dragons. And so they will craft these stories that, in my opinion, are complete hocus. Complete hokum, right? And they recently did one. They're like, oh, Critical Role is leaving D&D. And you see left and right all over. You see Twitter, you see this on YouTube. Oh, Critical Role is leaving Dungeons and Dragons. Seal your flapping maw. Critical Role is not going anywhere. Let's break it down, right? Okay? So let's look at the facts on the ground. First of all, there ain't a fact in the world that points to Critical Role being anything but Matthew Mercer. Matthew Mercer built the ship. Matthew Mercer captains the ship. And Taliesin Jaffe and Marisha Ray and Ashley Johnson and Travis Willingham and Sam Riegel and Liam O'Brien have proven to be nothing but eating passengers who feast at the table every day. They do nothing on the ship, right? It is amazing how Critical Role is built on one man's back. And honestly, I think it's offensive how bad it is. Like, he has written 2 D&D canon hardbacks. He has outperformed every single person who's ever been brought in to defeat him as a dungeon master, both literally in quality and in quantitative numbers, right? They've never been able to match him on anything, right? And they have to bring him in as a cameo for anything anybody even connected to Critical Role. Brendan Mulligan, Aubrey, I cannot remember. I'm not even going to try to massacre her last name. Aubrey. I cannot get her last name. Apologies. They all try, and nobody does anything. Like, he's still the only one laboring in that shop. It is horrendous, right? So, but here's the real kicker, okay? So where all this is coming from is Candela Obscura, right? So everybody's like, oh, look, it's the Critical Role people. It's an ongoing, not a short-run campaign, and they're not using Dungeons and Dragons. They're using their new, not Daggerheart, but the other system. And so they're abandoning Dungeons and Dragons, right? And they're saying this because season 3 of Critical Role, right, is actually spinning down. So it looks like that Critical Role is not doing D&D. They're literally on hiatus, right? But the biggest one is, if Critical Role is nothing but Matthew Mercer, which I think is 100% true, Matthew Mercer is still almost certainly right now writing a D&D canon hardback. They're not going anywhere. He literally owes one more D&D canon hardback at minimum. And get this, right? Because he's already turned in 2, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount and Call to the Netherdeep, right? So, and then we're going to get a 3rd D&D canon hardback from, guess who? Critical Role, right? So you're saying, oh, they're quitting Dungeons & Dragons, except for the fact that they're literally writing a D&D canon hardback right now, which a million people on the earth, which every tabletop role-playing game designer in the world right now would chop off their left arm to do, right? Like, so they're quitting Dungeons and Dragons. They're just literally writing D&D canon content right now, right? Like, so if you mean by quitting means literally writing the next D&D book, okay, like, you know, like, it's just so absurd, right? So, but let's meet them halfway to their myth, right? So Candela Obscura, right? Thank goodness, right? So I do understand. I don't think Critical Role wants to leave D&D for 1 second. Critical Role, however, is Hollywood, and they want to please the audience, and the audience is begging them to go anywhere but. Many of the loudest critters, not most critters, just the loudest critters, are begging them to abandon Dungeons and Dragons because everybody wants them to be the one who overturns Dungeons and Dragons. And honestly, I get it, right? I get them looking for a hero there. Let me explain to you why. There's 3 reasons Candela Obscura will absolutely, utterly fail to unseat Dungeons and Dragons in any possible way. Let's tick them off, right? First, Candela Obscura is Victorian, is a cult Victorian, right? If you chose a setting to beat Dungeons and Dragons, and you designed it to fail, you could not have picked a better setting to fail. A cult Victorian. Oh yeah, there's a lot of, boy, that's a really big audience there. Like, first of all, if you want to do a cult Victorian, you already been scrumpty dumped, defeated before you're even out of the gate. Blades in the Dark is amazing, and I can tell you right now, those sad sack fools over at Critical Role who are not Matthew Mercer cannot create anything even remotely equivalent to Blades in the Dark. This has already been done, right? And Blades in the Dark is niche beyond niche, right? Now, it is nice that there's a few Forged in the Dark game, but, like, trust and believe. If Blades in the Dark could not defeat Dungeons and Dragons, this sad sack one-cheeked effort from Critical Role with a cult Victorian is certainly not going to unseat Blades in the Dark, which was written by an actual genius, Jonathan Harper, right? Please, John Harper. It's just absolute absurdity. So, one, they picked the wrong setting, okay? The next is Taliesin Jaffe, right? He is the core lead point on this. Oh, man. You definitely picked the wrong person, right? If there's any talent in Critical Role, it's going to be Ashley Johnson might have been good if you had put her at the point of this, or Marisha Ray might have been good. Even Sam Riegel. If Sam Riegel were to turn serious, I think he could shock people and just use his intelligence, right? But rather than his fart jokes and male genitalia jokes, but if you want an actual if you want this thing to work, right? Making Taliesin Jaffe the lead, oh my gosh, you could not have picked a worse point, right? And the reality is he's really delivered nothing. He's delivered nothing in all the time. In fact, the only thing he ever did was put up Percy DeRollo, who puts an anachronistic thing into Critical Role, which is his gunslinger, because he didn't even read the player's handbook, right? And it's abominable. Taliesin Jaffe is the worst possible lead you could run on this. So you have a very so bad setting, right? A cult Victorian and bad lead. It is there's one more reason, right? So you have Taliesin Jaffe, massive weak point. Setting, massive weak point, right? And I think the last is just an overall. Oh, no suits. Thank you for your patience. Sorry. No suits. That's a big one. That is a huge one. No suits. Okay. This is really critical. Okay. There was a massive inflection in the history of Dungeons and Dragons. Gary Gygax, right? He wanted to be the creative, and he wanted to be the creative number one, and he wanted to be the chief executive officer, right? And what he did was he cocked up everything so bad on the commercial side, on the chief executive officer side, that he knew he had to give Dungeons and Dragons over to control of an actual CEO, and he gave it to Lorraine Williams. And she was a suit. That's the reality of it. She was a suit. And she was a suit when Dungeons & Dragons desperately needed a suit. And Dungeons & Dragons still has suits today, and these suits are incredibly valuable. Everybody's like, those dirty suits getting in the way of the awesome ideas of all these creatives and just, hamming up the whole project, right? And you're like, no, you do not understand. The suits are incredibly important. They get the money where the money needs to be at the right time, and they let their creatives do the work. And this is why Critical Role cannot unseat Dungeons & Dragons. Guess who the CEO and all their executives are? It's the same people sitting at the table, right? Travis Willingham has an executive role in Critical Role. What's that dude know? Like, he's a voice actor. What on earth does he know about, about running a company? And that's the entire point, is Critical Role cannot move forward into the grown-up, big girl putting on her big girl pants phase, because they don't actually have someone who is actually going to make the hard choices and say, this is an overstep. And I'll tell you right now, any real suit would have said, dude, I already did the numbers. Like, there's not a single Occult Victorian, game or streamed product anywhere that's ever done anything, right? These numbers are not going to emerge, right? And a real suit would have solved these problems. So those are the three reasons why Critical Role is not going to leave D&D, right? And this Candela Obscura, it'll blow away in the wind, man. This thing is not going to do any real numbers. Taliesin Jaffe is a weak point. No suits, massive weak point. Occult Victoria, totally wrong setting chosen. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.